Welcome to Catch Outdoors, presented by the Waypoint Podcast Network at waypointtv.com. I'm your host, Captain Rob Modes, reporting to listeners each and every week from the fabulous Florida Keys. This podcast is centered around the great outdoors, especially down here in the most southern regions of the continental U.S. Kick back, next 40 minutes or so, get a taste of my Florida. This week's episode, number 85, boats. Okay, simple title. Simple topic, actually, for me anyway. But first, a fishing report. Let's see, I made 2 trips. And back-to-back, no less. That's the first time I've done that in a very long time. Actually, not since stopping guiding 8 years ago. So, yeah, man, I don't usually do 2 trips. And, well, anyway, I'm old, man. So it's hard on the body. I've done 2 kayak trips back to back. I have done that, but that's kind of sitting down, just sort of pedaling around, relaxing. But doing the boat thing was different. I'm not going to say it was hard. I went out Wednesday and Thursday. So Friday was like, okay, I should probably sit around for a little bit and relax. But we've had the most beautiful weather down here, though. So it's very, very hard not to go. We just, like I'm recording this on Sunday, and yesterday was the first day that the breeze came up in the afternoon, and last night and today it's still a little breezy today. We've had some rain showers come through, but so this is the first thing in a week where, it hadn't been absolutely gorgeous outside. So pretty wild. Yeah, summer's coming. This is the summer pattern. It's just pretty. It stays pretty, and then we get the afternoon thunderstorms, or sometimes, actually in the summer, we'll get morning thunderstorms. Sometimes when you first get out of the bed, you hear rumbles, and it just goes away. It washes away. So on Wednesday, I went up in the backcountry with a fly rod in hand and a box of likely flies, which I thought would work, and they did. It's been quite a while since I really devoted an entire day to just nothing but fly fishing and staying off the spin. I had spin rods. I never go without that in a tackle bag. I mean, come on. But it was the focus was fly fishing. Most of the time I use the old standby, the Clouser Minnow. If you're not familiar with that and you're just now getting into saltwater fly fishing, that's probably the first thing you should look at. That or the Deceiver, one of the two. But the Clouser, I like to use a chartreuse over white, green over white, dark green over white. That's my go-tos, and then brownish colors when it's overcast and cloudy. But got into the trout in a big way, lots of trout, and ladyfish, jacks, but no snook, man. And I did some change ups to some personally hand tied stuff that I made. Those creations that I use for snook. Mostly puffy, white-looking things, things that look like bait that I've tied, things that I've made look like bait, and then I put little lines on the side of them. I draw on them with a marker to give them the look of a little baby pinfish. Nope. That didn't stop the trout and the other fish from biting, but I just could not seem to raise a snook. And that's okay. It was quite a day. I cruised around a lot, and I went to areas that I have never been in before, and that's important. I'm trying to expand my adventures into Florida Bay, the Everglades National Park. I'm trying to get up into the, I got all the way into the mud areas the other day. So mudding rays and sharks, and golly, did I see some sharks. There was one area where I ran into bull sharks that were no fisherman's lie. They were 7 or 8 feet long. I mean, these were big, fat bull sharks. And they were creating muds, so I went over I thought they were rays. Let me back up. When I say mudding fish, what I'm talking about is rays will get down on the bottom in the silt in the upper areas of Florida Bay, and they create a smoke line behind them, a mud line. And in that mud line, you can often get a redfish or a huge jack. They follow right behind the rays, and as the rays dig and flap their wings, they push things out like crabs and shrimp and stuff, things that are hiding down in the grass. And redfish and jacks are smart enough to know that stuff's going to be in that smoke trail. And I find that to be one of the most rewarding and most fun. It is sight fishing, because you do see the fins of the fish following the rays, and I enjoy the hell out of that. I really do. So I saw these big muds up in this one area, so I put the trolling motor on and headed over there just to take a quick look, and got on top of it, and it turned out to be just monster bull shark coming across. And then right after that, another one. I'm like, good grief. And I had an 8-weight fly rod in my hand. I do not, at this point, I don't own a 10 or an 11. I know I need one, and I'll work on that. Nick, if you're listening. Anyway, yeah, I know I need a bigger one. And then this is the other part of that whole story. Before I went up to my quote spot that I like to go to now to do a great deal of fishing, I came up on a huge open flat area where frigate birds were working. And I'm talking 30, 40 frigate birds. And I thought, oh man, this will be hot. The water in that area is about 4 feet to 5 feet deep. And I saw rolling tarpon, and I'm like, oh man, look at this. And then I started to get a little shy because I'm not one to throw an 8-weight fly rod at a tarpon, not a full-size tarpon. And these were full-size. These weren't babies. These were real tarpon. And I'm like, well, okay. So instead I watched, I toyed with the idea. I just didn't want to lose my fly line and cause an environmental problem. I'm like, I'm not good. I'm smarter than that. I'm not going to do this. And the spin rods were both light tackle. And I'm like, I'll just watch. And so I watched them migrate. I watched them move and watched their patterns and what they were up to. So I got that on the list. And, I checked off one more little tidbit of observation that is coming with my learning all about fishing the upper areas of Key Largo. This has been cool. I never thought at my age I would go out and have to really study all over again. I figured after all the experience I had on the water and all the places I've gone that I would have this down pat and just show up. I was talking to a captain who lives across the street, Kerry. What a nice guy. We had a nice conversation at the boat ramp the other day, just discussing, what he does and what I did. And he's about my age, and he's been at it a while down here in the Keys. And I made the comment about how I'm learning Key Largo after spending a great deal of time in Islamorada, and he point blank said all the keys are different. He said that the biggest difference in Key Largo is we don't have the current they have, and we don't have the tidal currents that they have down in Islamorada. And that's one of the things I noticed. It's very difficult to figure out the tides. And that's because they're subtle up here. They don't roar in and roar out like they do down in Islamorada, and further south for that matter. And he said, the Keys are over 100 miles long, and he said it's just like fishing different areas of the state of Florida. And he's absolutely right. So, but that was nice getting a little pat on the back from somebody that's been here for years and years saying, don't worry, you'll figure it out. So I hope so. On Thursday, I went out in the front, out in the Atlantic. The wind's been down this whole time. I tried to make it out to my far out spot, which is about six miles off, close to 100 feet of water. And it just wasn't doable. There were too many swells. In a flats boat, it's like, I've been around long enough to know I probably shouldn't be doing this. So I turned it around and I headed back to that would have been to the northwest, technically speaking, because you're coming back in. So I was heading, down island to the Mosquito Bank, and I got in there, and it was pretty good there. Actually, it was very good there. Mosquito Bank's depths run from like 2 feet deep to maybe 30 or so on the edges. No, not even that. 22, 23 on the edges. Beautiful water. It's got that green, it's gorgeous. And white puffy sand, a nice hard bottom with rocks and ledges and all kinds of stuff in there. Got to be careful. You can't just go scooting over it in a boat. I mean, it is, after all, a reef that you don't want to run into. Had lots of water, though. Tide had been up high in the morning and was now falling. So I set up on Thursday, I set up a chum bag off the back of the boat and worked the yellowtail. And I got in them really, really good, but man, I could not get any size to it. And it was, and back to the guy I've met, Captain Kerry, he said, he goes, that can be a problem because it's really weird in pockets here. You'll get into yellowtail where there is no mix. You just get nothing but small. And that's what I was in. And he said, and then every now and then you get into the one where every fourth or fifth fish is legal. I only wish, because I had caught it, it was at least 24. It could have been more, like over 30. They were everywhere. I stuck the GoPro down in the water just to take a picture of the school that was behind the boat. And, it was just nothing but yellowtail everywhere. Which, by the way, keeps all the other fish away. I discovered that too. There are no porgies, no grunts, nothing else can get to it that fast. A free line shrimp And when I say free line, I free lined it. I put a 1/0, I think it might have been a 2/0 circle hook, and a chunk of live shrimp, just broke it into like 2 pieces or 3 and put it on the hook, and then dropped it back in the chum line and just let the current take it back. And man, that was cool. It was just on every time I turned around. I thought almost every bait I dropped in the water, I either got a bite and miss or got a bite and a fish. So it was a good day. So that was my fishing report for me. Keys fishing report. It's all about mahi. Mahi. Still, the dolphin fish are out there big time. They're biting. I guess that's all I need to say about that. Well, trolling is, if you want a big one, it's trolling, and then you can sight cast the smaller ones. And the sight casting is happening right on the drop off on the weed line. So you find a weed line where it goes from 35, 40 feet and drops down to 100 right fast. You'll find the schoolies in there. By the way, dolphins had regulations for a while now, 20 inches to the fork. Yeah, 20 inches to the fork, 10 per person, 60 per boat. That's a lot of dolphin. This is a very fast-growing fish, and it's one of the fish that most of us do not feel guilty about keeping if we can. Prolific, which is good, which is great. It's become a major thing on the menu down here. You don't see grouper. Not well, you do, but it's very pricey. Now you start to see pretty much, if it's a sandwich, it's dolphin sandwich or mahi. Don't freak out. Okay, those of you who have no idea that it's a dolphin fish is what mahi is. They have that, and it'll be the fresh catch of the day, that kind of stuff, right alongside yellowtail. That seems to be the go-to. So anyway, the fishing in the Keys has been really excellent. Grouper opened on May 1st, so there's going to be some serious focus on that, I'm sure. And it's pretty much all, it's gag and the red and the ones that the people focus on. So that's pretty cool. And then on the patch reefs, like I said, it's all about the yellowtail snapper. And I saw some reports where somebody said the same thing I said. Man, we got into a lot of little ones. But then there were the guys that did find the larger ones. I was jealous, but I'll work hard on that. I'll try to figure that out in the future if I can. Speaking of some, I want to just a personal note. I went to the Lorelei with my wife Janelle and met a friend Tony and his wife Linda there. And I have not seen Tony in over 30 years. It was really cool. He and I hung out together up in Louisville way back in the day, right after I got out of the Coast Guard. And we worked a hi-fi shop. We sold hi-fi up there. And then eventually he went into the musical instrument business in one of the best shops in Louisville called the Doo-Wop Shop, which is close to downtown. It's in the Highlands. And that's where I got hooked on really nice guitars. Thank you, Tony. A bad habit. Well, he came to the Keys and he contacted me. Facebook's great, man. If you want to look up old friends and stuff or find folks, that's a great way to do it. And Tony and I have been conversing back and forth for, a couple of years now on Facebook. And he finally mentioned he's coming to Key West. So we got together up at the Lorelei and wow, what a great conversation. Just sharing stories with him. It's so good to see him. And it's neat. I love social media from the standpoint of that you keep finding these people that you haven't heard from in years. And I've got another one coming. I've got a childhood playmate. Kid, his brother, sister lived next door to us in Clearwater when I was growing up in Clearwater, Florida. And his name is Greg, and Greg is coming. And Greg contacted me, and I haven't seen. Okay, so Greg, that'll be what, 50 years? Holy moly, I can't believe that. So I really like it. The bright side of, when people are all down on social media, it's doing this and that. There is a bright side, and you can use it for good if you really want to. So very happy to see Tony. Tony, if you're listening to this, it was a great time, and I really enjoyed seeing you and Linda again. And Janelle said she really enjoyed meeting you both. So that was fun. Okay, episode 85. I almost said 58. Lord, that was a while back. Episode 85, boats. I know the title's just a bit broad. I mean, especially here in Florida, where there's all kinds of different bodies of water. I mean, that necessitates different boats, oceans, gulfs, bays. Let's see, what else? Passes, inlets, rivers. Doing this off the top of my head. Streams, canals. Oh, yeah, definitely canals. Lakes. I mean, it's pretty crazy when you really get down to it. Florida's just got a mess of water, and everybody enjoys the water. Everybody wants to get out there and do something in it. And so, I was talking to my mom on the phone the other day. It was the catch-up call. I like to give her a call every few weeks just to see what the heck's going on over on the west side of Florida. And the subject of the new boat came up, and she asked me if I was happy. I thought that was interesting. And I said, yeah, I'm really happy. Yes, I am. I'm back on the water. The kayaks were great, and they are great. I still have them. I'm toying with the idea of perhaps selling one of them and hanging on to one. But that'll come later. I haven't really decided what I'm going to do about that. But, down here in the Keys, there's a lot of water. There is massive amounts of water, and I wanted to explore more than I could get to in the kayak. So the boat was a natural progression, I guess you could say, or inevitable might be a better word. My heart is mostly in Florida Bay, within the Everglades National Park. There's just something about that place. I don't know. It just stokes me. It's hard to explain. All of you listening probably have something that really just gets you going, whether it's sports cars or a friend of mine, orchids, birding, shelling, whatever it might be. And in my case, for some reason, it's Florida Bay. I don't know what it is. I guess it's just the magic of the place, the sheer size of it, and the fact that you can go in there. It's just one of the places you can go and not see anybody. You might see one or two boats the entire 4, 5, 6 hours you're in there. I think that's what's so neat about it. And that's another person that's found their way. They're just like, oh man. And there are times in there, even back in the days when I was fishing Islamorada almost 30 years ago, 25 years ago, it was a place that I like to sit and just look around. I would just stop and just enjoy the view. The other day I did it. When I took that fly trip, there was at a point I was just resting my arm. I've been tossing the fly for a little while, and I just kicked back on the boat and looked around and enjoyed the view and enjoyed the fact that I am sitting in a place that other people dream about sitting in. They watch TV shows and they watch travel shows and they hope to get to this place. And I'm lucky enough to be sitting right in the middle of it on a beautiful day. Birds everywhere, fish hitting the surface, and then the quiet, just the extraordinary quiet of that area is, I guess, what's really gets to me. But kicking back is an option I have up there. And it's an option I did not have when I was a guide. When you're a guide, man, you're working. You generally have 4 to 6 hours to get people on fish. And so it's a constant motion from place to place until you find something, and then you work it, and then you move on to the next one. It starts to die out, and then you eventually go back to the dock. And man, oh man, I like being on my own out there. It's a different world. Somebody asked me, do you miss guiding? I do, but I miss the people in guiding. I don't miss the work. I don't miss throwing a cast net. I do not miss that. I don't miss, the daily grind of washing a boat and keeping things clean and keeping them in order. It's a job. Being a fishing captain in the state of Florida is a job. And if you think otherwise, you're wrong. In this case, I'm retired now, and now I boat like other people boat. I go out and just, oh, look, it's a pretty day. I think I'll take the boat out today. Oh, look, it's really messy. I don't feel like going out there and dealing with this, so I'm not going to. So it's a big, big change, a big change. A few months ago, I was asked to do a kayak seminar at the Islamorada Boat Show. Honored, actually. The first time, I mentioned this in a previous podcast, first time I've actually done a talk in the Florida Keys. I mean, I've done tons of them on the West Coast, everywhere from Bass Pro to schools to beach seminars to fishing seminars, tournament seminars, you name it, I've done it. So it was very exciting for me to be able to do one here on a subject that I was well versed in the kayak fishing. I told people right up front, I am learning this area. And I'll be honest with you, down in Islamorada, I knew all about how to do it there. And I told them, I said, I'm in Key Largo now, and it's a mystery and it's fun. But the kayak is a wonderful way to get into the water inexpensively. You can get very reasonably priced kayaks, grab you a paddle, get you a fishing rod, and put a little frozen-y shrimp on there, and you're good to go. Basically, you can get out there, just get on the water and do it and see the sights. And I'm lucky to live next to Pennicamp National Park, Pennicamp State Park, and it's really, really fun to go into Pennicamp and do the trails and things. I think that's one of the reasons I want to just hang on to at least a kayak. although they're rentable there too, so there is always that option. But I got to talking, and after I was finished with my seminar, I got approached about people asking me about other watercraft. They realized that, I was a captain. They knew where I was from, that I'd worked really hard in Islamorada as well as over in the West Coast as a guide. And it brought me back to an article that I wrote years ago, I probably early in my guiding days. Someone asked me to write an article for a little magazine, and I said, okay, sure. What do you want? Well, whatever you come up with. And at that time, I had just been to a boat show, and it I don't know, it just crossed my mind that the average person in Florida who fishes, who really enjoys the outdoors and fishes, needs 4 boats. Yeah, I know, absurd, and costly, but it was true. I was just taking it to the point of it's just something that's out there that needs to be talked about. And so I started that article with the kayak and canoe, and talked about this. And that was pre-paddleboard, by the way. Now you can add paddleboard to that as a way to fish. I'm not that steady. I couldn't do that. But there are much younger people who do and successfully fish with a paddleboard. You got more visibility when you're standing up, so it makes sense. So I talked about the kayak, and then I moved into the flat skiff, shallow water boats. They're usually 17 feet or under, 18 feet or under, and they're designed to basically go in the back. Most of them float in 9-10 inches of water, some less, some a little bit more. But the idea is to be able to get you to places that other people can't get to in larger boats. And I talked all about that. Then I moved into the center consoles. And golly Moses, when I wrote that article, there weren't a lot to pick from that did, bay fishing. But they came up with the bay boat, and the bay boat center console was a huge hit. And that usually started at around 19 to 20 feet, went up to maybe 22 at the time. Now they've got 27, 28 feet. This is for backcountry. I think Pathfinder, I haven't looked this up, but I want to say I fished with a guy on a Pathfinder. It was at least a 26. It might have been a 27. Single engine. In Florida Bay. It was a guide. I went out with a guide. That's the boat he had. I'm like, good grief, this is amazing. I guess it's like a battleship, displacement. If it's big and wide, it displaces the water and floats a little higher. That's just my theory, but it was incredible where he could actually go in that thing. I was pretty amazed. And I fished the 21 LTS, the Mako for Bass Pro. Same thing, the 21 foot, very broad. The thing was, I think it was over 8 feet wide, almost 9 feet, the beam. That thing would go in places that was really amazing. So I balanced it with that. And last but not least was the big center console, the offshore center consoles. And today they're making 42s and things like that. Back then, the center console boat was really more of like a Grady White kind of thing. People were just starting to shift over to using outboards instead of inboards. It was a big push to take the motor out of the boat, the engines out of the boat, and hang them on the back as large outboards, because the outboards were getting bigger and better and more efficient, especially fuel efficiency and things like that, big 4-strokes. And now, today, if you look around, it's not unusual to see a boat with 3 or 4 hanging off the back of it, the extra horsepower. And that came when they started putting out the center consoles that were 35 to 42, 44 feet long. I have seen some beasts down here in the Keys. I mean, I'm not kidding you. You look at that and you go, that costs more than a house, way more than a house. It's incredible. But that's the 4. So you got a kayak, get you into little places. You got a flats boat to get you out on the skinny water. Got a center console, which will fish most anything within reason, inshore, offshore, and you're able to switch it up whenever you want to. And then the big center console, the beast, the one that's going to take you from here to Bimini, for example. A lot of people in those big boats here will leave here and head for Bimini and fish over in the Bahamas on them. That's a day trip, by the way, not an overnight. It's unreal. Go out to the Tortugas, the Marquesas, and fish those things. And on the West Coast, where I was familiar with when those boats started to show up, even after I stopped guiding, friends of mine were driving them for clients, for customers, and they were taking them, they'd run out 50, 60 miles, fish, and come back. Take them to lunch in the Keys, get in a big boat off Naples, run down to the Keys and go to lunch and then come back on the boat. So that's what that extra horsepower and that extra speed gave. It gave you this option to really broaden things. So I'm still of the belief that the boats are kind of, the four are kind of essential in a way to just about everyone, but you have to decide what to do. And that's the brass tacks of it. This is what it comes down to. Indecision may or may not be my problem. I'll put it another way. One of the best times to buy boats in Florida is April and May. And there's a reason for that. We have a mess of snowbirds that come down from up north, and they look around and go, dang, I need a boat. and they go get one, by golly. They've got it on the brain. I'm going to be down here for 3 months. I need something to boat around in January, February, March. And it could be a pontoon. It could be a flats boat, skiff. The guy decides he wants to fish. It could be a center console. It can be just most anything. And then over the 3-month period, they realized they made a mistake. They realized that one of the 4 boats they picked was not the right boat. And now they're like, no, what am I going to do with this thing? They're going to sell it. That's what they're going to do. They're going to trade it in or go find another boat and swap it out. Now, here you got a boat that's been out for 3 months, roughly. Boats would depreciate like, I don't even know what to say. They depreciate like crazy. Not a good idea to make a bad decision on a new boat. Let's put it that way. Unless you like losing money. But they do. That's what they do. They take it and they put it up for sale. They offer it up in one of the book magazines or trades in, or they might go back to the dealer that they went to and say, okay, I made a mistake. I do not need this flats boat. My wife does not like it, and she doesn't like it because she can't bring 1 or 2 of the children with us. We need a boat that we can all go on. Okay, but I want to fish. All right, so what's he do? He goes up to the bay boat usually, or a little above that, and gets the center console style boat. And now mom's happy. The kids are happy. Everybody's out on a boat in their boat, and he gets to go fishing when he wants to in the boat. And it still does the job. That's just an example of what happens out there. Sometimes it goes real radical. Sometimes it goes from the flats boat of the center console to the great big pontoon. And I'm not picking on pontoon boats. Let me tell you what, I've been on quite a few. I've rented quite a few in different waters of Florida. They're fun. And you can fish off of them now. I saw one the other day. You'll love this. Had a Mercury 300 on it. I don't know the length. I'm going to say it was about a 22 maybe. Comfortable padded seats all the way around. It had power poles, dual power poles for anchoring on the back, and a great big trolling motor on the front. So this guy had figured it out. He's like, okay, family, here we go. And then when I want to go fishing, I can still take a fish. And guess what? Pontoon boats float skinny. That's just the nature of the beast. So those guys that laugh at it, I'm like, no, what you got to get is one that's covered on the back with a pop-up cover. You don't want a permanent roof on the thing or a top, because there's no way to walk around. You get a big fish and he starts running around the pontoon, but you can't follow it. I've seen this, by the way. It's very comical. But what you need is a fold-down top, something that'll fold all the way down to the back of the boat, off the stern. That way, when you go fishing, you get a big fish, you can run all the way around a boat just like you should. Man, I had a problem with that. I had a master's license, so I used to do those big fishing trips on the boats, on the great big pontoon boats. There was a 40-footer, I think it was 45-footer, and others. And they have, stanchions all the way around that hold the roof on, and you get some poor soul catch a really nice fish out there. And now we got to move. So what do? You have to hand the rod, from hand to hand around the stanchions as you run around the boat trying to keep this big fish on. So I've been there. I know what it's like. But I won't poo-poo a pontoon boat. I just won't do it. There are people that's absolutely what they need. So these trades happen, and they happen in the spring when these folks are leaving, basically when they are headed out at the end of March, April, around tax day, usually about the 15th seems to be one of the cutoffs for just, getting out of here. And the kids are off spring break, got to get them back in school. Well, they just take this boat and they go, okay, I gotta do something. That's when you buy a boat in Florida. I'm not kidding you. You can go to boat shows if you want to, and you can look all you want, but the honest to goodness truth is you can get one hell of a deal in the springtime when somebody's unloading their boat for a trade. So what do I get? What boat do I get? What do I do? That's the questions I got. And I explained what I just talked to you all about. it's a tough decision. It ain't easy. And especially since most of us, I can't afford 4 boats. Barely afford 2. I've got kayaks and a flats boat now. That's enough. So what do you do? I mean, how do you figure it out? You should base it upon conversations. Okay, if it's you, yourself, me, myself, and I, that's easy. What do I like to do? What's my favorite thing to do? I like fishing the bays. In my case, I like fishing in the park, Everglades National. I like the shallow water, so it's a pretty easy decision. This is what I want to do. And unfortunately, my wife loves to do that too. So that's pretty, okay, we got that one down pat. But you need to talk to your family. You need to talk to your kids. You got a young man, young lady in the family that's loving fishing and learning to fish, or you've brought them up fishing, and they're, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 years old. Talk to them. What do you like to do? What do you want to do on the boat? It's particularly difficult here in the Keys. I will say that. This is a really unique area in the state of Florida in that we live on islands and we're surrounded by water. And we have a beautiful Atlantic Ocean right next to a beautiful Florida Bay. And so it's really, really hard to nail that down because that's 2 different boats. I mean, that really is a difference. You can go out front in a good-sized console, center console. Not a problem in a 24, 26. But the gunnels for those of you that don't, a gunnel is the side of the boat. The side of the boat is not very tall on most bay boats on purpose. So you can reach the water to release fish, to bring them in the boat when you're fishing, things like that. You take that out in the Atlantic Ocean, you got a 3 or 4 footer. That's not cool. So there's these decisions to make, and it really boils down to what do you want to do? What's the number one thing you want to do with the boat? And then I have a suggestion. There are zillions of rental places down here. They rent boats of all kinds. They do offshore, bigger boats, medium-sized boats. You can even get flats boats in the back, and of course you can rent kayaks. So there's the option of that as a fallback. So let's say you purchase a boat, and you purchase it based on what you really, really like to do. But then a day comes up when you go, man, I sure would like to go out to the reef. You can rent a boat. It's not that bad. $300, $350, $400 for 6 hours usually, maybe a half day to 6 hours. Penny Camp Park down here doesn't charge much more than that for a whole day on the boat. And you don't buy the fuel. Well, not right now you don't. They're getting ready to change that. But, that would give you your offshore fishing day when the weather looks really nice and you just want to get out in a bigger boat and you want to take the family out and you want to fish the reefs, and your flat skiff can sit at home on the trailer and you don't have to worry about going out there with too many people in the boat at too high of a surf, too high of a sea. So keep that in mind. Also, that's a really good way to find a boat. If you're not sure, rent boats for a little while. Go out and get, how often are you going to go? Once a week would be a lot. That's what most people don't do. A lot of people that own a boat, I see them in the neighborhood here sitting on a trailer for weeks at a time before the guy actually takes it out fishing. So I'm one of the unusual ones that'll go at least once a week, sometimes twice, but most people don't. So rent a boat. Go to a rental place and get kayaks and try it. Hey, maybe you just love that and that's all you need. Maybe that's what you want to do with it. If not, and also it's very affordable, got to go from a price standpoint. If not, you can rent flat skiffs down here. Back Bay flats boats are certainly available, as are center consoles. The standard stuff, Pathfinders and things like that are available. And then you've got the big boats. You can rent a big boat. It's pricey as hell, but you can certainly do that to give you an idea of whether that's where you really want to be or not. And big boats are a problem too. There are an awful lot of people that buy a big boat that shouldn't, only because they have no idea how to drive it. And so you have to keep that in mind as well. If you buy a big boat and it's one of your first boats or is your first boat, you're going to need instruction. You're going to have a captain alongside you to help you figure out how to run it, how to dock it, how to, everything there is about a big boat. It doesn't have brakes. Okay. So it's not like jumping out of a small car into a very, very large car. It doesn't work that way. And so that also comes into play, and you have to keep that in mind. So rental is a good thing and something to certainly look at. Talk to friends. If you have people that own boats, ask them questions. What'd you get? Where did you get it? How much was it? Do you like it? Was it a good decision? I'd love to hear the answer to these questions, quite frankly. Boating is really, really fun, but the worst part is buying it, and the best part is selling it. I'm sure you've heard that. The best day of your life is buying the boat. The best day of your life is getting rid of the boat. So, yeah, well, there is that. And over the years, I've been through quite a few boats. But at the same time, it became an upgrade, something that I could work on and go, I really like this. And I like this about the boat. Also, getting this boat that I just got, I knew exactly what I was looking for. Exactly. I knew where I'd be with it. I knew what I wanted to do with it. So this was really, really easy. This was like a 3-day decision. I didn't have to search. I didn't have to hunt. Didn't have to think about it. So that's a good thing. I get asked about brands, and that's really hard to talk about. I don't promote boat brands on this podcast. That's up to Waypoint to add ads to my podcast. But I will say this: I'm fans of certain boats. I'm free to talk about that. Hughes Manufacturing, which makes the Hughes Redfisher series, the bay boats, the flats boats. They make the Pathfinder. They make the Maverick. I mean, those are really great boats. If you're looking for a boat manufacturer that does a great job, I'm very, very happy with Mako. I have been for quite some time since they reintroduced some of the new boats over the years, and I was lucky enough to drive one for Bass Pro. And just because I got a boat from Bass Pro doesn't mean I'm talking about it. That's in the past. That's gone now. I would still buy one, and I did. The Makos they're well made. They're not real pricey. They ain't cheap, but they're a great boat to have out on the water. Reliable. That's the main thing. And there are many others. Yellowfin. Oh boy, Yellowfin. That's a nice boat. Everglades makes a beautiful boat. Let's see, who else can I pick on? If you're going offshore, Grady Whites. I mean, how can you not consider Grady White? They've been around forever, and they still manage to do some of the most amazing things year in, year out to make the boats better every single year. And I was around a dealer that sold Grady, so I'm very familiar with. Heck, I drove Grady's for people, and they're an excellent boat. Janelle's my first boat was a Key West, little 17-foot Key West, and boy, did it get some use down here in the Keys. And then it followed us to the West Coast, and it became my guide boat. And I have no idea how many hours I put on it, but I know that boat is still around, and I know somebody's using it. Okay, so, great hull, works fine. The only problem I ever had with it was it didn't float real shallow. It's a 17-foot boat, but it had a fairly deep V hull, so it'd be comfortable, in waves and water. It was a great little guide boat. It worked fine. I just couldn't get into some areas that I wanted to get into, and that's when I got into Skeeter, and eventually from Skeeter into the Makos. So I'm just kind of throwing those out there to kind of give you a place to look. But you have to remember, there are literally hundreds of boat manufacturers now. I can't remember the name of the one I saw down in Alamorada. I'm sorry, guys. I wish I could tell folks what it was, but it's look upable. There are people now that are custom building a boat to your liking. I mean, they basically show you hull designs. They give you like 3 or 4 hulls, and they say, okay, here you go. It's like Carolina Skiff used to do years ago. Maybe they still do. You get a hull, you like it, you put whatever you want on it. You design the boat yourself. You put the cabinets where you want it, put the console where you want it, steering, all that stuff is selectable. And it's like a la carte, so you're within price limits. You can say, okay, this is what I want to spend. What can I do? And they give you a list of what can go on the boat. I think that's a fabulous idea. And hulls are hulls are hulls. I've been saying this for probably the last 5 years. Everybody in the business of boating is copying each other, not illegally, but they're copying each other's designs on hulls and how the hulls work in water, whether they kick water away, whether they float lighter, better, whether they cut through waves in a certain. This is something that's just been going on. If you took everything out of a lot of hulls that are out there, they'd all look the same. You'd be sitting there, and there's no way in the world you'd be able to tell which boat was which by just looking at the hull. And that's cool. I mean, that's a good thing, because what's happening is we're starting to get these boats now that functionally are great, and they work fine. Engines have gotten really good. I'm a Yamaha and a Mercury fan. I was not a Mercury fan 20 years ago. Mercury's didn't do very well in salt water. Mercury's were what we consider to be freshwater engines, and they did really well in the freshwater. Well, Mercury sorted it out. I don't know exactly what they did. I guess the Verado probably had a lot to do with it, and Mercury now makes an excellent saltwater engine, as does Yamaha, as does Honda. as does Suzuki. I could go on and on and on. So, I think it's more about warranty. If you're going to shop on a new boat, ask a lot about warranty. Ask if you can buy additional warranty. I would do it. Absolutely. It's a boat, for crying out loud. It's going to be in salt water. Salt water is brutal. And so the more coverage you can get in that department, the better. And there's many, many other things that kind of go into buying a boat and considerations, but I'm hoping I've touched on probably the tip of the sword, actually. But anyway, hopefully that this helps a little bit with your decision making and how to go about getting a boat for you and the family. And I really don't want you to be the one that's trading the boat in April. I mean, really and truly, it would be really, really great and economically sound if you were able to pick out the right boat the first time around. I'm not going to say that's going to happen because I know too many people that have jumped through at least 3 boats in the last 10 years. So that seems to be kind of the nature of the beast. But maybe you can hedge that bet and make it last 3 years instead of 3 months. So good luck. Email me if you want. I'm always happy to answer questions. That's Catch You Outdoors, catchyououtdoors@gmail.com. You give me a holler. If you got something you're looking at, something you're curious about, something on a boat you're not sure about. I mean, electronics are crazy. Combination depth finder, GPS, radar. There's just so much going on in boats right now. So, but if you got a question, feel free to ask. I'm always happy to answer. Thank you so much for taking the time to tune in. My podcasts are scheduled for each and every Tuesday. If you enjoyed listening, tell a friend, leave a review. Don't forget, subscribe to my channel. Catch You Outdoors is presented by the Waypoint Podcast Network. It's available on Waypoint and many of your favorite podcast providers. The Facebook page is Catch You Outdoors. The websites, catchyououtdoors.com and waypointtv.com. Until next time, get outdoors and enjoy.